In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to mix multiple values of a single color using oil pastel. So the first thing that I want you to do is please put your name and your class code on here. Now, I'm going to be showing you on this worksheet here, but these techniques can be applied to any type of project or sketchbook assignment, but I will just be working with this sheet specifically here, but feel free to use this again if you need a little refresher on oil pastels. So a few things that we want to look at here. Each of these value scales here is going to take us from light to dark, and we are going to use a separate color for each one. You can do any order that you want. I'm going to start with red. So I'm going to need a red, a black, and a white. I'm also going to get a paper towel because you'll notice that sometimes oil pastels have what I like to call goobers on them. So you take the oil pastel, you give it a little twist, good as new. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do is I'm going to have you start by coloring in your hue. The hue is just the pure color with no black or white added to it. Hue is kind of basically another word for color. All right, so I'm going to have you kind of start by outlining it and then just filling it in. Now I'm pressing hard here, but I'm not pressing as hard as I can because then what happens is you wind up getting little goobers sort of all over the page. So these are nice and smooth when you color with them. So as long as you use like a medium pressure, you should get a lot of really nice coverage. And then you can always blend a little bit with your finger, but to be honest, with the pure hue, you really don't have to do a lot of blending. Now I want us to start to work with our tints first. Now, some people like to work from light to dark, but I've noticed with some of my students that when we do that, they tend to not have a big enough range of value. So range of value is like the difference between the lightest and the darkness, or darkest shade, and we want to make sure that we have a lot of different values in here and that there's enough contrast or difference between them. So for my next one here, and this broke, so I'm just going to put this aside, but I could still use it just fine. I'm going to color lightly with my red. Actually should have outlined first and then colored in. And then I am going to just blend with my finger, okay? And around the edges, I'm gonna kind of almost like outline the edge of the little box. So if you look at this, you can kind of see now I have red and then I have sort of like a dark pink looking shade or tint, because a tint is the color mixed with white. Now in this case, we could add white to it if we needed to, but we really don't have to. Sometimes just the amount of pressure that you use with a material like oil pastel or colored pencil can determine the value. Now for this one, I am going to color super, super, super light, okay? As lightly almost as I can. And then I'm going to blend around the edges. And then I'm going to color on top of it with a little bit of white. And I'm going to blend that. Okay, so now when you look at them, you can see this is a lighter value. Now for my last one, I am going to color as light as I possibly can. I'm coloring so light, it's like a little feather. Okay, and this is tricky, and this is something that a lot of times we need to practice. And then I'm gonna blend. And then I am going to go over it with a lot of white. So I want this to be like a super, super pale pink, okay? So now I'm gonna start to get into my shades, and a shade is a color mixed with black. So now black with oil pastels, a little bit goes a long way. Okay, and black can get very smudgy very fast, which is why I typically like to work with hues and tints first and get into shades toward the end of my drawing. So I am going to start out by very, very lightly, like a little feather, getting a tiny bit of black laid down underneath. Then I'm gonna blend, and I always like to blend in the opposite direction that I colored because it smooths it out a little bit. It's called blending against the grain. So now I have this sort of light gray. Now I'm going to just color over it. So I'm going to outline and do kind of the same amount of pressure as I did on my hue, that nice medium pressure, and then I can blend it. Okay, you don't need to over blend it. Sometimes if you over blend it, you'll see you'll almost get like a bald spot in the middle. So now I have a nice little shade there. So for my next one, I'm just gonna color with still light pressure. Still keeping it really light, because like I said, that black oil pastel, a little bit goes a long way. And I'm gonna lightly blend. And I'm going to color over this, and I'm pressing harder now so that I can really get a lot of that red down, but also so that I can really blend that nicely. So now you could see it's darker, and you could see if you blend a little bit too much in the middle, you can almost see like that little bald spot starting to form, okay? So just don't over blend. Now for my last one, I want it to be super, super dark, almost black. So for that, I'm going to color with the black with kind of like that medium pressure that I did here. And then I'm gonna color over it with the red, and it's gonna kind of mix together. And I might not even need to really blend that one if it's smooth, but I can always do a little bit of light blending, okay? And again, you don't want to press too hard because you will get those bald spots. I'm going to repeat this same process, and let me clean this for the next person, with all of these colors. So maybe like this one will be blue, maybe this one will be green, maybe this will be yellow, maybe this will be orange, maybe this will be violet. Try not to use oil pastels like the gray or the peach. You can use the brown if you want. The kind of like lighter neutral colors don't work great for this type of exercise, but you can certainly apply these techniques to those oil pastels as well if you're using them in a piece of your art. So have fun. Don't forget, start with the hue, tints first, then shades. Think about your pressure, and don't forget to blend.